Great. Okay. So yeah, the topic for today is education. Okay, education and schooling, which is it's a pretty common topic, which can come up in writing and speaking. So we're going to get right into it. And as always, if you want to stop me, if I'm moving too fast, anything like that.
All right.
Just let me know, okay?
Okay, now I'm ready.
So today, we're going to talk a little bit about teachers today. Like we did last time, we're going to look at some words of the day. Now, I know last time you knew some of the words already, which is fine. So that's the challenge for me, is to maybe try and find words that will be useful to you. But also in the writing, there will be I'll give you some really nice vocabulary to talk about different types of schools, but we'll look at that later on. So as usual as well, I think the best way to approach these speaking skills and speaking practice is to give you examples of the kind of questions you might see in part 1, and we'll get your answers with those. Something we will continue to do, if it's okay with you, is just the mistake correction challenge. Like, you'll be the teacher, I'll give the answer, and then you will correct me with some of the errors in grammar and maybe pronunciation that can come up. Then we'll do some part 2 practice, which will be you planning your answers and giving me your 2-minute talks. And finally, then we'll finish up with part 3 and some feedback on the different criteria, the different scoring criteria that you will come across. We'll move on to writing then. So we're going to look at advantages and disadvantages, an essay related to schools here. We're going to watch a short, very, very short video as well, just to get ourselves thinking about the topic. And that's some advice I would give you, is like, if you look at all the different IELTS topics that can come up, it's really useful to have, first of all, to start thinking about that topic. Now, I think the best way to engage with the topic is to maybe watch a video or read an article related to the topic, which can get your kind of get things flowing in your mind for what you could write about and what you could talk about. So we'll do some brainstorming and planning. Then I'm going to try and save some time today for you to do the whole essay, if possible. I know last time you did like the introduction and the body paragraph, and I also know that you're super busy, so it might be the best strategy for you to do the writing in the class, okay? So that way I can give you feedback on that. We'll talk a little bit about task 1. Sounds like you talked to your Vietnamese teacher about task 1, so I'm not too worried about that. I'm sure that she can give you some good advice about task 1, because it's kind of like a formula you would need to follow, depending if it's like a pie chart, if it's a table or a map or a process. Now, of course, if you have any questions about that, for example, like a process diagram, you would need to take a certain approach. For example, you might need to use the passive voice to describe processes. You would also need to use time connectors to connect it all together. For like a map, so sometimes you might see a task 1 where the maps will change, and in that case you would need to use more complex grammar structures, especially if you're aiming for that score that you want, the high score. You would need to manage, for example, the perfect passive tenses, which some students go, oh my goodness, Halleck, this is, they're more complex. They're not really, to be honest. They're pretty straightforward, but I guess the more tenses students see, they're like, oh my goodness. But don't worry about it. But it's very important that if you saw a map, with like a map in the past and the map now that you would be, and especially because of time limitations, you would see the question and you're like, okay, right, I'm going to use the perfect passive tenses here to describe these changes. All right, it's a process diagram. I got to use the passive and I got to use the time connectors I've learned. That saves you a lot of time. It gives you more time for task 2. Okay. Now, I'm probably waffling on a little bit here.
No problem.
So it's time for you to get speaking. All right. So here's your first question, just to warm up a little bit. So you have 1 minute to think about the best or worst teacher you've had. So just in the spirit of the IELTS exam, I'd like you just to think about your answer. Maybe you could write a few key vocabulary words down, or who you're going to talk about, maybe what subject the teacher taught you, and of course, why they were the best or worst.
Okay.
All right. So, tell me about the best teacher or the worst teacher that you've had in your life.
Luckily, throughout my whole academic journey, I have pretty much only encountered good teachers, great teachers who are very lovable, who have an unbiased views on different areas and subjects, and at the same time they are also very supportive to students. And the teacher that I want to talk about today is my critical thinking teacher, who taught me the subject in my first year. First of all, the subject itself, the critical thinking subject, is a very crucial subject in my opinion. It helps me to learn about the logical thinking process and help me to think in an unbiased way, and just to analyze things through an objective lens rather than your personal views. And throughout my entire year of that course, I have definitely learned a lot from my teacher, because she not only taught what was in the books, but also what wasn't in the books. She had a very realistic approach, a career-based approach to the subject. Therefore, I always understood how I could apply the subject into my everyday life. And talking about being supportive. So after I graduate from the course, she still followed me on social medias and helped me to apply for scholarships, and provided me with recommendation letters, because luckily I'm also a very enthusiastic student in her class.
Do you see this teacher nowadays, or have you seen her since your first year at school?
Well, we haven't got a chance to meet offline, but we do talk to each other online. And I think that we will maintain our relationship in the future.
Excellent. All right, thank you. Yeah, fantastic answer there. As an examiner, really strong answer here, using nice vocabulary like unbiased, crucial, career, realistic, supportive. I also like the way you started your answer. You said luckily, and that would be an uncommon way to start your answer in the IELTS test, was very effective, because you have given me a marker about how you're going to approach your answer, which was really good. Nice job with that answer.
Right. Actually, I do recognize some of my shortcomings. So if you
tell me,
yeah, okay.
Tell me, what do you think?
Yep, right away. The tenses. Sometimes I still forgot that I was talking about this teacher in the past. So sometimes I would misuse the tense, the past tense, and I would have to go back and correct myself. And also some mispronunciations at time. But this time, I try to talk in a more gradual and more in a slower pace, so I could control them better than last time, for example. So I actually recognize more of my mistakes compared to the other times when I just was like, just keep going. Yeah.
Sweet. Look, it's great. The first step is recognizing them while you're learning, while you're practicing, and while you're taking classes. That's the first step. That's the most important thing, is student awareness about errors they make. It's a huge thing. Some students will go for years and years and years without knowing that they're making the same mistake over and over again, and then they wonder why they're not improving with their score. So that's the first step. Well done. Yeah, I noticed it was like you not only teach, and then you changed it to talk. All right.
Yes.
Yeah, that happens. It happens to non-native speakers. It's a really common thing. Won't affect your score too much if you're aiming for around the 7 or the 8, but if you did, there was one error you made with that tense that I picked up. It's a very small thing, but the issue for getting the band score of 9, it's an error that a native speaker would never make, because it's a mistake they would never make. And native speakers do make errors. That's something that you need to be aware of. We all make errors when we're speaking. We muddle our words, things like that. But it's a systematic error. And that's it's fine. And that's something I've just made a note of this, which is something we can work on in future classes. We can kind of do quick fire tense change activities. So I've made a note of that, and we can work on that in the future. All right. But yeah, really good answer. Just a couple of little pronunciation things as well. Now, the first one was unbiased. Now, you said that twice. The second time was fine, but the first one was kind of like unbased. It sounded like unbased. So just very quickly, and this is this is something that I need to do. Is just we'll do a little bit of practice on each one. So it was unbiased. Lovely. Another one was crucial. Now, it's a slight, very, very tiny change. So if you listen to me, this is how it sounds: crucial. So you need a little bit more focus on the crucial. It's like a sh sound. Crucial. Yeah. Crucial, yeah. Get that sound in there when you say that word. Yeah, so not crucial, crucial.
Okay.
All right.
Crucial.
Yeah, crucial. So she sounds like a wonderful teacher, and you have actually Great answer, by the way. Really strong
Thank
answer.
you.
But you have caught me out already. I have failed a little bit again in the words of the day. So
All right,
first of all,
wait, first of all, can
okay.
I'm having some
Yeah.
snacks at the side just to keep me awake from the day. So I hope you don't mind it at time when you're having your session, and I might take a snack.
Yeah.
Hope it's all right.
Of course. Hey, I've got my coffee.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Cheers.
we're on the same boat. We are on the same boat. Of course, that's no problem at all.
All right. Sure.
So a nice one and a common actual topic in writing and speaking is education reform. Okay, so education reform, a nice compound noun to use. Try and get it in at some stage in your speaking today.
Education reform.
To pass with flying colors. What does that relate to?
I know this idiom because I also use it many times in my speaking. It's
Right.
mean that you pass with excellent results, basically.
Sure. Have you ever passed a test with flying colors?
Most of the time.
Excellent. Great. Brilliant. Then we have this one. So it's a pretty common one as well. But to get a head start. Now, we use this every day. It was like, I want to get a head start on my work because I want to finish early. But how would you relate this idiom to education in a way that is used very accurately for getting a head start in relation to education and school?
Right. Usually, getting a head start would mean that you need to. How do I? Like you would do something in advance, right? To better prepare. Is it?
Yeah. That's
So,
true.
for example, in education, it would be maybe you need to get a head start in your class. Or to be honest, I have no example at this moment.
You're right. It is usually about doing something in advance. But if we're thinking of children, right? Hundreds and thousands and millions of children around the world are all going to schools. Some of them go to very good schools. Some of them go to schools that are not very good. They all start in the same place. Okay, so in this context, to get a head start.
Maybe the students in the city usually get a head start in education compared to their peers in the suburb, in the countryside, maybe.
Okay, so is that because they might have
better conditions to
where they are? Okay, all right. So like school is really important, or good school is important for kids to get a head start in life. So in that context, you could relate it to life in general, not something you need to do, not an assignment you need to do and you want to get started early. It's about life. So so good education, good teachers will give kids a head start in life, and that's a really nice one to use if you can. And I'd like you to try and use it in our speaking today. Here's a proverb for you. You may have heard this before. Knowledge is power, and it's a nice one to use. Why is knowledge power?
Because when you have knowledge, it means you are very you understand a lot of things, and you have the know-how to do a lot of things, the things that might help you to achieve success. So it's your power right there.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
Nice one to use if you can. Yeah, knowledge is power. Foster is a nice verb here.
Foster.
Just mean to foster.
Yeah. Usually I would use the word foster for maybe like, you do something to foster something, like you maybe the Vietnam needs to make more effort in order to foster digital transformation, something like that. But I'm not very diverse.
That's okay.
In terms of
it's a really nice one to use in terms of education and teachers.
Right.
And I'm going to show you an example in a minute. And the last one, I think you've caught me out more than once, but yeah, critical thinking was the first thing you spoke about today, and you spoke about it really well. So let's cross that off the list. You have a very strong grasp of explaining critical thinking and how it related to your life, which was really interesting to hear about. Just some examples. Before that, can you remember the words from last time? So here's a little challenge for you. I know it was a long time ago,
all right,
about weeks, but can you remember? The topic was work and careers.
I actually remember, like, it's all scattered throughout many lessons. So the words that really stood out to me and I used it more was work. First of all, digital savvy, to hit the nail in the head.
Nice.
All right, and to work and career, perks, benefits. I'm not sure what was in the list.
Yeah, I'll take three.
Wage?
I'll take three. Three is I'll definitely take three because it was 3 weeks ago, and sometimes when I ask some of my students what we learned yesterday, they struggle. So I'll definitely take three. This is great. Okay.
To burn the midnight oil, right?
Yeah, we did that as well. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
In your mind, yes.
Savvy, turn a passion into a profession.
Aspire also.
Crime, aspire, perk, and have your work cut out. You have had your work cut out recently. Is that true?
It's very true.
Okay. So education reform to pass with flying colours, get a head start, knowledge is power, foster and critical thinking. And you can see the variety of kind of words that you could use, and the challenge really for you is to use them in a way that makes sense, use them accurately, and that they're relevant to the question, because like I said last time, there's no point in shoehorning words in just for the sake of it because you want to show the examiner your brilliant vocabulary. It won't cut it for the really high score. It would actually have a negative effect, but you'll be fine with all that. Just some examples very quickly, which I liked. So education reform is urgently needed in order to provide equal opportunities for all students. Pass with flying colours is fine. Yeah, head start in life. That's the key with that expression. Get a head start in life. So not all kids get that head start in life for many different reasons. In fact, probably the majority don't around the world, but it's super important to have good teachers, good school, can give kids and people a head start in life. I like this sentence: in the information age, knowledge is power. The more you know, the more you can influence the world. And this is the kind of thing. So if you can explain like knowledge is power in a really succinct way, if you say knowledge is power on the test, something very simple can often be more effective than a longer answer. So in this case, in nowadays, knowledge is power. The more you know, the more you can influence the world. And saying something like that in an IELTS test would be really strong thing to say. Here's the meaning of foster in this context. So the teacher's role, her job, is to foster a love for learning in her students. So it kind of, could you think of like a synonym maybe for foster?
To cultivate love.
Yeah, nice, really nice, exactly. Yeah, to foster, to cultivate, to develop a love for learning in her students. Really nice one to use, and particularly effective for talking about a good teacher. Okay. Finally, the philosophy course was designed to enhance the students' critical thinking skills. So, let's get into part one. All right. Now,
Part
one
one,
questions, as you know. Yeah, sorry.
No.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
So part one questions will be about yourself. They're usually pretty. The idea of part one is to warm you up, to make you feel comfortable.
Part one, why else?
And to talk about everyday topics like yourself. So, before I ask you some questions, how are you approaching part one in the test? Now, I went through it briefly last time, and there are some things you might need to think about in relation to part one. For example, how long will your answers be?
Not too long. Of course, I remember that we talk about to keep it. You don't want to answer too short, but make it concise and don't make it too long, because it's going to be for part 3.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. That's it. Yeah, 3 or 4 sentences.
Yeah, 3 or 4 sentences
should be enough. If your answer is too short, the examiner, that can affect you. For example, I had a candidate about 3 years ago.
All right.
And like yourself, she obviously wanted to get a band 9 score. She got an 8.5. And the reason she got an 8.5, you won't have this problem, but just to make you aware, she got an 8.999. And the reason she got an 8 in her fluency was because she was a bit nervous, and her answers in part 1 actually were too short.
All right.
That held her back. They were just too short. So yeah, you're bang on there, right on. So, what was your first day at school like?
I remember that I was very nervous when I got to school on my first day, and I cried a lot. My mother told me that it was a nightmare to take me to school, because I have been staying with my mom. I had been staying with my mom for a very long time. Therefore, it was very breaking, right? to go to school and to stay there for an entire day by yourself.
Good. Saw the little tense change there. That was fine. This would be I had been. Nerve-wracking.
Racking, right? I was trying to remember, but I couldn't. Racking.
Nice.
Nerve-wracking.
Nice answer. There was one at the very, very end of your answer there. You said by yourself.
Yes,
How would you change that?
Myself.
So, little thing. No problem. Good answer.
Right.
Effective answer. Just the little things like that. But over time, they're going to disappear. They're going to disappear over time.
Okay.
Nerve-wracking. Great word to use.
Racking.
Really.
Is it start with a W, right? Racking?
I think so. Yeah, I don't remember the last time I spelled it out, but nerve-wracking.
Racking.
I don't like things that are nerve-wracking. Nice answer, though. Let's go on. Did you enjoy your time at school?
To my surprise, I enjoyed my time at school very much. First of all, I got to make new connections with great friends. People were incredibly friendly, and I actually found out that I was very intrigued by the subjects at school, especially with science and arts also. And when I was at school, I got to do all of that. And the teacher also supported me very well throughout the entire journey.
Great answer. Answered the question fully there. To my surprise, this is really strong. This is a really strong, similar to how you answered before with luckily.
Yeah.
This is a really less common way to answer a question like this. This is really strong. Will have a great effect on your fluency. Okay, it's very natural. Okay, the only couple of things there was intrigue. So you found, I think it was I think you said I found a few subjects.
I was intrigued by.
Yeah, so let's get the E sound there. Intrigued. Let's get that more, the E sound.
Intrigue. Right? Intrigue. Sorry, can you pronounce it one more time?
What was the sentence again?
I say that I was intrigued by the subjects at school.
So let's go for I was intrigued by.
I was intrigued by. Is that correct?
Okay, let's hear the D sound at the end. Let's hear that D sound. Right. So intrigued by.
Intrigued. Intrigued.
So give me that sentence again.
Okay.
I was intrigued by.
I was intrigued by. I was intrigued by. Right. I was intrigued by subjects at school.
Let's go for a little bit more on the D sound. I was intrigued by. So it's like intrigued. So your mouth kind of goes down a little bit. Intrigued by.
Intrigued. Intrigued by. Intrigued. No. Intrigued by.
Intrigued by. Intrigued by.
Intrigued by. I don't know if you can hear it very clearly on the laptop, but I try to pronounce the D. Intrigued by.
Intrigued by.
Intrigued. Intrigued by. Intrigued by. Intrigued by. Okay.
Excellent.
I tried.
No, that's great. It's like this is you know, like there was one word out of how many words, but like
so
it's kind of
right.
It's like because your speaking is so good that if you can imagine the examiner, he meets you, right, and he's like, well, she's really good. She's really strong. My job is totally different now. My job is not to bring you up. My job is to look for things that will stop from getting up there, okay? And that's the kind of thing that we would look for. But again, we're gonna go through all of that, okay? What about this question? What was your favorite subject at school?
First of I have a question. So for the pronunciation of the D, like the intrigued by, usually in the native speakers sound, would they, express? Would they, stress on that sounds a lot, like intrigued by? Do you have to make it very clear?
Well, let me say, so if I was saying it naturally, I'd say I was really intrigued by science and art at school. I was really intrigued by. Now, the issue is if you don't really hit that D, it sounds like I was intrigued by, which in that case would actually change the grammar structure. I was intrigued by. So
I was intrigued by.
Yeah. So in that case. Yeah, now there are lots of different sounds going on in English. But in that case, it kind of changes the grammar structure a little bit. That's why you'd want to hit that D sound in that case.
Right. All right.
Yeah. So like if I was saying, sometimes I have to think myself. But yeah, I was intrigued by.
Okay, back to the question.
What was your favorite subject at school?
I love science, especially biology, because both of my parents, they a lot of interest in biological issues, and there was a time when I was also very determined to become a doctor. Therefore, that's why whenever I was in my science or my biology class, I always found myself to be very focused on the subject.
Okay, nice answer. It's nice the way you related back to your own experience, like with your mom and dad. That was a really good answer. What did you think about that answer? Was there anything that you would think back on?
Well, I kept it pretty simple. I did notice my tense use, so I corrected it. But beside, and the biological, I'm not sure if I pronounce it natural enough.
Biological? No, that's fine.
Yeah.
No, that sounded good.
Okay.
Yeah, that was fine. Let's try another.
Okay.
Did you participate in any other activities at school?
I was very anti-social when I was at school because once again, I was very close to my mother before I went to school. That's why when I got to school, I was very nervous when I connected with others, and that actually led me to to build like a barrier between myself and my friends for a very long time. And not until roughly around grade 5 that I started to open myself more to other experiences at school. For example, extracurricular activities like musical activities, which I wasn't very great of. And I also did some sports. But overall, I was not very active at school.
Okay. Nice. Nice linking devices there. Good way to end your answer with overall. Like that, really good. Using other cohesive devices, like especially a small thing.
Okay.
Very nervous when I connected with others. What could you change that to, and why might that be an issue? So I was very nervous when I connected with others.
Yeah. And yeah, maybe when I talked, when I interacted, right? It sounds better.
Yeah.
Yep.
Interacted. The only thing is like, so I'm very nervous when I connected. So connected would be like a positive thing. So I guess like when you connect with someone, it's actually a positive thing. Mm-hmm. So you might be nervous about connecting with others. Mm. Or another nice way to say that would be, I was very nervous around other children. Yes. I was very nervous around the teachers and the other kids. Would work better there. And if you wanted to use connected, I was nervous about connecting with others before you can kind of connect it. All right. We are going to do one more here because time moves very quickly in these classes. So let's just do one more and then we'll move on to part 2.
Okay.
So how have your schools changed since you were a child?
During my time at school, my school didn't have a lot of facilities. They didn't have modern technologies like computers or laptops or even a projector. However, after I graduated from my that was my elementary school. So after I graduated, my school started updating all of their facilities, and they also expanded the school. So they actually had a playground for everyone for every student to use during their break time. And one wonderful thing is that even though I didn't get to experience those updates, my younger siblings was actually enrolled. She actually enrolled in the school and got to use all of their amazing devices.
Nice, sounds great. After I graduate,
graduated. After I graduated.
That's it. After I graduated. Nice. Yeah, that was it. That was the only thing. Siblings, you mentioned your siblings. What did you say about your siblings again? Just so I'm sure about this.
I talk about my sibling enrolled in the school. And
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, so my sibling was. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. So how many brothers and sisters do you have?
I have one little brother. So my brother is actually a transgender. So before it was a she, and now he's a he. Yeah.
Oh wow.
So
what age is he?
He's now 18 and is moving to Ho Chi Minh City, the same city where I also based at, to study his university. And I'm very confident in his ability to really thrive in this environment.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's a fantastic city. I've been there a couple of times.
Right.
I'm sure he's very proud of his big sister too, is he?
I think so, yeah.
Great. Excellent. All right, let's move on. Like I said, there are a few more, and I'll share this presentation with you in the group chat. Here's an idea I highly recommend. Maybe you could, if you get time, and this is something we'll start doing in the classes as well. But you're good at assessing yourself after you speak, which is a really positive thing. Have a go at recording yourself if you have a little bit of time. If you're I don't know what you've been doing, but if you have some time, get out your phone, answer a question, record yourself, and listen back. I had a student recently. He was quite it was a much lower band score, but it totally changed things for him. He was like, I can't, because he kept saying "isa." He would put "isa" into nearly all his sentences.
All right.
I participated "isa" in school. He just kept saying it, and I'm like, look, the only way I could make him realize is like, record yourself, listen back, and tell me how many times you say "is and he did it, and he was like, oh my god, he had no idea he was saying it. Not that you have that problem, but certainly little things is really useful for you to pick up on. Okay. Right, I'm going to do a very quick error correction challenge. We're plowing through the time here. Let's just do it very quickly, okay? Because I like this because it gives you a chance to put yourself in the examiner's shoes. So what they would hear. Now let me get it up here. Where's my gallery here? Okay. All right, have a listen to this.
Okay.
So I'd like you to ask me this question.
Okay. What do you think are some of the issues with the current education system in your country?
Well, there's a growing call for education reform in our country. Many people feels that the current curriculum fails to fostering the necessary skills that students needs in today's rapidly changing world. Now, if you'd like me to say that again,
yes,
that's fine. That's the question again.
All right. What do you think are some of the issues with the current education system in your country?
There's a growing call for education reform in our country. Many people feels that the current curriculum fails to fostering the necessary skills that students needs in today's rapidly changing world. There were 3 errors in that last sentence.
Oh, I only caught 2.
Okay, what did you catch?
Feels and foster.
Good. So many people feels should be?
Yep. It should be feel.
Exactly. Fails to fostering. What's the issue there?
Fail to foster.
Exactly. We need the infinitive after to.
Right.
And the last one, let's listen again. The current curriculum fails to foster the necessary skills that students needs in today's rapidly world.
Right.
Exactly. Well done. Now, that's enough. We're not going to do the other errors because I want to move on to, and you had it right there. I want to move on to part 2. Okay. Now, you know that part 2 is your long turn. This is really your chance to show off. Okay, show off. Show the examiner. This is you have total control over this part about what you're going to say, and as long as it relates to the topic, then you're golden. You're good. Like you know, the plan is really important. Okay, the what, the where, the how, the when, the why, and the who. All right. Now, here are some topics from part 2. Now, these are the type of education-related part 2 questions which may appear or something similar. For example, you might describe a project that you did in school with your classmates or friends. You might describe a period of time from your studies that was the most difficult for you so far. You might describe a teacher. So describe a teacher from the past whom you remember. Another one might be describe a subject you enjoyed studying at school. Now, I think you've covered the subject you enjoyed studying at school from your part 1 question. You also covered the teacher from the first activity we did today. So I would like you to choose either a project that you did at school, or I'd like you to describe a period of time from your studies that was the most difficult for you. Which question would you find the most challenging?
Yep, the second one would be more challenging for me. Right, okay. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Keep in mind, don't try and force them in, but keep in mind those words from the start of the lesson. Can you remember what they were? I'm not telling you to force them in there or anything, but can you remember?
Some education reforms and also pass with flying colors. I intended to use those things.
Okay, sounds great. So, in IELTS style, I will give you 60 seconds to plan your answer.
All right.
And you will talk for 2 minutes. One thing I would like to tell you, I don't know if I told you last time, but at the end of part 2, the examiner will ask you a rounding off question. So that's basically, he will interrupt you. Yeah, he'll interrupt you to ask just a very basic, simple question. My advice here, answer that really quickly, give a very short answer to it. The examiner will appreciate it. Otherwise, he will need or she will need to interrupt you. So, all right, 60 seconds. I'd like you to describe a period of time from your studies that was the most difficult for you so far. 60 seconds. All right. Remember, you have 1 to 2 minutes for this, so don't worry if I stop you. I will tell you when the time is up. Can you start speaking now, please?
Okay. It is my belief that the current system in Vietnam would need somewhat an education reform, because students nowadays, they tend to easily get overloaded with curriculums that is currently running in the systems. And I was no exception to that situation. During my first year of university, it was extremely difficult for me to navigate an entire new, a very fresh environment. The environment in university differed from the environment that you might have when gone through during your earlier years. One of the difference was that you would have to be very self-motivated in order to pass the exams and pass the courses with flying colors. And there were a lot of subjects during my first year. You have the political courses, the English courses, and also the mandatory subjects and those subjects that are specialized for your major. And in order to accomplish all of the subjects, it required me with a lot of effort and time. For me, it was very emotional training as well as physical training. At that time, I also had my internships in a very large company, and our work was...
Have you had better experiences since?
Luckily, no. And I just kept on, working on my my balance, work, school, and life balance.
Thank you. Can I have the paper and the pencil back, please? All right. Nice job. Nice answer. Really liked some of the language you used. I was no exception. Very effectively used there. I really liked the way you described how you had to navigate the system. Perfect and accurately used for navigate there. That, if you can imagine, that puts a picture in my head, of a boat out at sea. Navigating is difficult, right? And you use that really effectively there. Couple of things just with emotionally draining. Yeah, that's it.
And physically training.
Emotionally and physically draining. Super language to use. Yeah, emotionally and physically draining. Okay.
Right. Nice job.
Mandatory, specialized, new environment. One of the differences.
One of the differences.
Yeah, one of the differences.
Right.
Emotionally and physically draining. Just if you could just go back, you did use education reform, and you used pass with flying colors. Nice one. Can you remember? You used education reform. Could you say that back to me again, if you can? So it was like Vietnam needs education reform.
Yep, the system in Vietnam needs an education reform. Yeah.
Okay. So in that case, if you're referring to the system, it would be like the system needs reforming. Might work better. So the education system in Vietnam needs reforming.
Yeah.
You could even keep it kind of more simple. You'd say education in Vietnam needs reforming. That would be a nice one to use.
Okay.
Or Vietnam needs education reform. That's I heard this. I heard that on the radio the other day. Ireland needs education reform. It was a politician, right? You're just being really kind of blunt in what you're saying. It's okay to do that sometimes. Just make your statement short, and often the short sentence can have more meaning. So Vietnam needs education reform. It's quite a strong statement to make, but it's effective as well. Okay. I like that you got in and passed with flying colors. Nice job. Overall, really good answer. just those couple of things, emotionally, physically draining, one of the differences. But very strong answer overall. Okay, nice job there. Nice job.
Okay.
Now, let's see. We're going on to part 3. Now, you know that part 3 is loosely based on the topic from part 2.
Okay.
And you know that this is going to be a tougher. This is going to be a tougher set of questions for you, especially as the examiner knows that you're above the 6, you're above the 7 threshold. You're going to get the tough questions, like it or not. You're getting the tough questions, and the examiner will challenge you. Okay, if he or she feels like you're getting an 8, you're getting a 9, he's going to make sure, he's going to really challenge you. Okay, and this is where it gets kind of tough. But don't worry about it. You'll be well able for it.
Okay.
Important though, organize your answers and definitely give your opinions. Give lots of opinions. Okay. If you don't support your opinions, your examiner will ask you to. All right.
Okay.
Now, let's look at some of the types of questions which would go with what you've just answered. So, describe a period of time from your studies that was most difficult for you. All right. So, again, you can talk for longer here. There's no, I wouldn't say like give a 3 or 4 sentence answer. You talk as long as you want here. In fact, the examiner should really interrupt you sometimes, because part of the examiner's job, and actually something that we are assessed on, is the ability to ask questions related to what you say. So just be prepared. If you say something like, for example, if you were to say Vietnam, you might end your answer with, in my opinion, Vietnam needs education reform. That's when the examiner will say to you, why? Why is that? So you got to be ready to respond.
Right.
So let's look at some potential questions. So do you believe that going through challenging periods during one's education is important for personal growth?
Overall, overcoming difficulties is one of the factors that helps a person to grow into a better version of themselves. However, I do not totally agree that you need to go through such a hard time at university or in your educational in your education in order to grow. I believe that schools and the education systems needs to provide all of the support that they can for the student and to help them grow.
What kind of support?
Yeah.
What do you mean by support? How can they provide that support? What does it look like?
First of all, for example, teachers need to better allocate their curriculum according to the average of their class, the average capability of the students of their classes, or they can help students overcome their personal challenges when they study that subject. Or, for example, in a wider span, you can really look at how the education department, they can have more programs to help solve these conflicts and issues that still exist in the system.
What are some effective strategies? Oh, that's kind of related to, let's go with, you've kind of answered that one as well. How about this one? Some people argue that educational success depends on personal qualities like resilience and motivation rather than intelligence. What's your view about this?
People have a saying that is success is 10% talent and 90% hard work. And I agree with that statement. So it's very similar in your education. You might not be the brightest student in the class, but if you have the determination and you have the resilience to to improve your studying and improve your ability to learn, then I believe that you will be able to develop your ability as a whole.
So where do students learn to be resilient, and where do they get their motivation from?
To stay self-motivated is extremely hard, but it's not impossible. For students, usually they are very young, and this is one of the characters that they would need to develop over time, and it would definitely take a lot of time for young people to learn this. However, I believe that in an education settings, they can, watch from their peers and from the people who have already succeed in their fields of studying to have more motivation and to cultivate or to foster a love for education.
Nice, good. Foster the love for education. Yep. Great, you got it there. Really good answers, strong answers, and you were certainly ready for my jumping in there. So well done. Characters?
Qualities.
I thought you said
characters?
Did you say characters or was it qualities? Sorry.
Yeah, characters.
So how would you change that a little bit? So it's not characters.
It's
develop character.
Qualities.
You're very close with that one, and it's a great word to use. Character, it's finished with...
characteristics.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Really
close.
Really good. Yeah, that's a nice one to use. Yeah, characteristics. Very good. Stay self-motivated was really well used there. Better version of themselves. Really like it. Really like it. It was just a couple of things, really. Capabilities. Can you say that for me? Capabilities. Yeah, lovely capabilities. And there was just an added S on one of the needs, but honestly, no, those were great answers. And right now, I'm already planning in my head how we're gonna focus on some activities next time, and for a few of these little things that you have. Okay, so we're gonna work on that next time. I think that would be the way to go in relation to the topic next time, because you're giving super strong answers. And if you were to take out some of those little issues,
mm-hmm.
you're gonna go right up there with your score. So that's in my plan for next time. Okay.
Okay.
Let's see what the time is. Okay. Time just flies by in these lessons. You can have a look at the rest of these answers by yourself. And if you have any questions or anything like that, you can ask me. These are the type of questions that will challenge you in the exams. Okay. I've also added some questions from describing a teacher from the past whom you remember, and again, you can see how some of these questions relate to that topic. Okay, and things like strict teachers. I like the way you use foster. You use foster accurately there as well. Great one to use. Now, some of the feedback, like I said, really, it's really you're using lots of words accurately, super fluent. Your fluency and coherence is not an issue at all. The only thing that breaks your fluency slightly is when you self-correct, which is not often, but that would be the only kind of issue there at the moment with fluency. Just some of those self-corrections. Like I said, we all self-correct. I self-correct. Everybody self-correct. But you can see how it's related to your grammar. So it would affect your grammar score when you're self-correcting to change the tense that you're speaking in. And like I said, this is great for me because this helps me plan exactly how I'm going to help you with these things. Vocabulary, super strong. Only little things is just, there was a couple of, just the way education form was used earlier, not a big issue. We're going to get everything super accurate. And your pronunciation, you have your connected speech is great.
Okay.
All right. The issue is just mispronounced words.
Yeah.
So individual words. And again, this is great for me because I'm going to get this into the plan. I already have a list of the words that you, I'd say, struggled with, because when if you struggled with them, and this is a big issue for learners, is I wouldn't know what you actually said. Now that's not the case. I understood what you said. It's just the little inaccuracy pronunciation. But overall, really strong. And to be honest, I feel like you're getting stronger. I think I thought your answers today were really good compared to a few weeks ago. Now it's not me because I've only seen you a couple of times, but I thought your answers were very strong today. So well done. Maybe education is a topic that's close to your heart. It certainly seems that you have a really good, a lot of opinions about education. And we're actually going to get into that now with the writing, which we need to move on to. Scriptures. With you, we're not take a photo or any. What talks more about discourse? The band scores yourself. What the difference is between a 9 and an 8 and a 7, which is really all you have to worry about at the moment. And you can see here, so occasional lapses. Okay, easy to understand throughout. Accent has minimal effect on intelligibility. So here is like, in your case, it's just individual sounds sometimes. That's something that we can work on. Okay.
All right.
If you have any questions about this, and you can see here for the band 8 in grammar, okay, produces a majority of error. So that majority is like most of your sentences are error-free. Now you're nearly there, and you've certainly got frequent error-free sentences, lots of them. But as you can see, some grammatical mistakes persist, and they are systematic errors. So you could see yourself what you would need to do to get to get above the 7 in grammar is to eliminate those errors, and that's what we're going to work on doing. Okay?
All right.
And if you have any questions, I'll share this with you. Any questions at all, just send them over to me. Okay?
Definitely.
Now, do you have? Sorry to interrupt. Do you have any questions?
Not yet. Yeah. Okay,
sure. Right. So we're moving on to the writing. Right. We've got 45 minutes. I'd like to show you a short video. Now, the reason I'm showing you this short, so this is advantages and disadvantages of essays. The reason I want to show you a short video is to get you thinking about the topic.
Okay.
Okay. So I have some questions for you to think about while you're watching the video. It's very short. First of all, what does the research say? What's your own opinion?
Mm-hmm.
And is there any vocabulary that you like?
Okay.
Parents often ask me whether they should
Okay. Can you hear that okay?
A little bit louder.
Louder. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Parents often ask me whether they should consider single-sex schooling for their sons or for their daughters. I always try to go back to, do we have research that supports an answer one way or the other? And this is a field where there's actually quite significant research. I'll try to encapsulate it quickly. You look at all the research in the last 20 years. It basically says, if you have a girl, you might want to consider a girls' school experience at some point in her life. And if you have a boy, the research supports coeducation for boys. The why of that is interesting. Girls in general who spend some time in a single-sex setting tend to have better self-esteem, better leadership, better achievement in the present and throughout life. Boys who attend co-ed schools tend to do better in terms of social development, language development, and social savviness, I suppose, would be the best way of saying that. So there's kind of a differential of support. Yes for girls, no for boys, but I always end by saying the quality of the teacher and the quality of the culture of the school has more to do with it than whether it's single sex or co-ed.
Okay, so interesting topic. In my opinion, it's a super interesting topic, especially as I have two boys who go to a co-ed school. And for me, I'm really happy that they go to a school that is a co-ed school, because I think girls can have a great influence on boys. Maybe you disagree with me, but I'm really happy my boys are in a co-ed school. What does the research say there?
Just to be clear, because this is a very, not exactly a new topic for me, but at the same time, this is pretty much one of the first times I have ever heard about this topic in English. So actually I want to clear, first is single-sex education here. They are talking about how school, you were talking about co-ed school. Was that single-sex or co-sex?
So
right.
Single-sex is boys' school, only boys.
Yeah.
School, only girls.
Right.
Co-ed is co-educational. So that would be a mixed school, so boys and girls. Yeah.
So boys and girls, yeah. Well, my opinion, I have never really looked into single-sex education, but I agreed with you that the differences between the two genders can actually be beneficial for each of the genders. So there are many qualities that girls naturally possess, and the same for boys. And growing together and learning together actually helps both boys and girls to learn about the differences, and to also to be more to have more empathy for each other. Yeah.
And is that what the research said? What did the research she was talking about say?
Well, I believe that she was talking about the differences between how schools approach each gender, and at the same time, she really put a lot of emphasis. She emphasized on the quality of the school and the quality of the teacher.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, she did. She emphasized that. Yeah, nicely said. She did. She put a lot of emphasis on the quality of the school. I would certainly agree with her there. It's a cool topic. Any vocabulary there that you picked up from the doctor or the researcher?
One of the words was differential something.
Differential,
Right.
yeah.
Yes.
So, that was a good one.
That was quite new for me. Yeah.
Yeah, let's go back to how she said that actually.
Of support. Yes for girls, no for boys. So there's kind of a differential.
So differential is like a thing that's different, basically. It's a differential. So the differential is boys, in her case, boys should go to an all-boys school. Sorry, no. The differential in opinion was girls should go to an all-girls school, and boys should go to a co-ed school, which, I thought that was really interesting, actually. So, according to her, girls should stay away from boys, and boys should stay with girls, really. So that was her opinion. But the differential is the difference in opinion. So the differential between boys and girls in that context. Any other words that you picked up there?
Not really. Besides like single sex education, because I was trying to focus on the entire context and the content that she was talking about.
Sure,
Since this is quite a new topic,
Right. Well, like this, I'm glad that's the case, because this is something that may happen in the exam. So the topic is education, but education is very, very broad. I mean, there are lots of different things that may come up, and you would need to be ready for that in the test. So this is obviously related to the task 2 we're looking at today. Other words I like personally, self-esteem. So,
self-esteem.
Self-esteem is a really nice word to use for kids, for education. There you had savviness again. I like that.
Savviness. Yeah.
Savviness. Really good. Really good. I like her actually. But we're going to say goodbye to her because we're going to look at the topic.
Okay.
And here it is. So this is a question that has come up. Now I'm going to show you how important it is to really be careful about how you would answer the question. So in some countries, girls and boys are educated in different schools rather than in the same school. What are the advantages and disadvantages of this? Now, this is a little bit more straightforward than some of the questions you might get, but I want you to think about here the topic words, any other keywords, and what are your instructions. Now, I want to emphasize, I want to put emphasis on how important it is to do exactly what they tell you to do. And I'll tell you why in a few minutes, but I cannot emphasize it enough how important it is. It's easy to do, but it's also really easy to make a mistake.
Right.
So, and I'm going to give you an example in a minute. So in some countries, girls and boys are educated in different schools rather than in the same school. What are the advantages and disadvantages of this? Topic words. What are the most important words here?
Educated in different schools rather than the same school. Yeah.
So, what are they referring to here? Are they referring to co-ed schools or single-sex schools?
They are referring to single-sex schools.
Yes.
Versus co-ed schools.
Yeah. And so that's pretty much it. Those are the key words there is educated in different schools rather than same. And the words there.
Right.
Single sex versus co-ed. Great. Your instructions are pretty straightforward. What are your instructions? What are you going to do in this essay?
Well, they want us to go through the advantages and disadvantages of the subject.
Advantages and disadvantages of what?
Of yes, wait, of being educated in single-sex schools.
Okay,
Right.
great. So let's generate some ideas. Now, here's some advice for you, which is really important. Keep your ideas as simple as possible because it will save you time thinking about them. You don't need to be too abstract or, dive too deep, really, because you if you keep your ideas simple, then you can elaborate further in your answer. But it's to save time, because how many minutes do you have to plan your answer?
5.
Oh, 5 minutes, yeah. So keep your ideas really simple. That's my advice here. Keep your ideas simple, because you can get a really high score in your writing by keeping your ideas simple. So the advantages of co-ed schools versus the disadvantages of co-ed schools. There is a big error here. What is it?
This approach fails to touch on single-sex schools, because that was what the topic put the emphasis on, rather than co-ed schools. Exactly. That's it. Exactly. I'm really glad you noticed that. Yeah.
Exactly. And if you answered the other way, disadvantages of co-ed schools and the advantages of co-ed schools, that would have a really negative effect on your task achievement.
Right.
And it would basically ruin the essay. You could have perfect cohesive devices, perfect vocabulary, perfect grammar. You miss the question, it's really has a terrible effect on your score. Very frustrating for people. I had a student 2 weeks ago, wrote a great essay, totally lost focus of what the question asked because she was so enthusiastic about, and it was great. If the essay had been about what she wrote about, it was brilliant, but it was a huge effect. So I guess what I'm just trying to highlight here is be very careful of that. Even if you're totally sure, just check it, okay? So well spotted there. Now, I don't think we need to talk about all the advantages and disadvantages of single-sex schools together. You're well able to do that yourself. So in the plan, really what you're doing is you're looking at, that should be advantages and advantages, disadvantages. So yeah, pick, how many would you pick? How many would you go for? Let's go back here for a minute. How many? You don't need to tell me what they are. What are you thinking here? How many?
Can you rephrase the question one more time?
Sorry, yeah, of course. So you're doing your plan. You need to write down advantages and disadvantages of single-sex schools.
Okay.
How many of each? So how many advantages, how many disadvantages do you think?
Okay.
You include?
For me, the ideal number of each would be 3.
3, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Do you think, would you be able to fit 3 advantages in one paragraph? Bearing in mind that
yes, yes, it would be.
Back it up.
Yeah. If each of the advantages. Okay.
do, just let me know. No, I'm happy to stay as long as you need. It's 10 o'clock in Vietnam. I'm sure you're
Right.
wrecked, tired. But I am happy to stay as long as you'd like me to. Your call.
Okay. I think I got like the draft. I can share you the screen.
Sure. Okay, I will stop sharing.
Okay. So this is what I've got so far, because first of all, this is a very new topic for me. So I actually had a lot of difficulties in planning the ideas because I don't really know what I'm gonna say.
Okay.
But yeah, so I have to go back and forth a few times. So that really consumed a lot of my time.
Sure. Well, it's interesting that you said that, yeah, because a topic can throw you a little bit, in the test. You might get something you're super familiar with. You're like, all right, bring it on. And then another one might cause you to stop and pause and give you a little bit more, or give you a little bit less time for planning and writing. So it's good to be aware of these kind of questions, like going back to the video, watching 2 or 3, like I like these short videos. Just watching 1 or 2 related to a topic can really give you a lot of ideas that might cover a lot to do with that topic. Like for example, co-ed schools, maybe things like homework, things like that, and that can really help you when you get in the test. It's like, oh yeah, I can relate it to that, I can relate it to this, and save time. So let's have a quick look now. If you can, now it's up to you. I mean, if you want to send me this, I can go through it, or if you want to finish it yourself and send it to me in the chat, that would be
Right.
great for me. I'll give you the full feedback, but it's up to you. Some region 80 used to have strictly single-sex schools, which now replaced with co-educational systems. This is due to debates on the single-sex education system over the year. Given that, it's crucial to discuss both the pros and cons of this approach. Okay, nice. Just for your introduction.
Yeah.
So going back to the question, it's good that you've mentioned some regions, because the question does state that. Let me just be sure. Let me go back to the question. Yeah, some countries, some regions, that works well there. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. So if you can go back to the brilliant. So used to have strictly things that are now replaced with co-educational systems. Okay, so yeah, I see what you're getting with there. This is due to debates on this over the year. Okay, so like I would recommend for your introduction. Now you just keep it as it's hard to overemphasize how simple you really can keep it. So really, I would leave out due to the debates. Okay, we want to focus on. Now remember, there's no time, there's no space for what's not needed.
Okay.
So in this case, I would go right to the question, and I would say, some regions, girls and boys are educated, or girls and boys go through the education system in their country in single-sex schools as opposed to co-ed schools. And what you're doing there is you're paraphrasing the question, but you're also using synonyms, you're using words that mean the same thing here. So, for example, different schools means single-sex schools. You could even say something like they're separated, they're divided, even maybe something like that. And to single-sex schools, as opposed to the same school. And in this case, you would say as opposed to co-ed schools. So you show the examiner that you can paraphrase the question and that you can use better words than they have used. All right. So you're just keeping it that simple. Now, going to your introduction here about the debate, you don't really need to mention this, okay? You could mention it further on, but in your introduction, just stick to what you see in the question. So in this case, going back to your instructions, it asks you the disadvantages of this. So what you could do here, instead of saying this is due to debates, you could, and now looking at the bottom paragraph, okay, so this is really nice. You're going into some back here, which is great. So you could reference that in your introduction. So you could say some of the advantages, I haven't read it all, but some of the advantages, easier for teachers to adapt the curriculum. So you could mention that. So you could say, on the one hand, an advantage is it's easier for teachers to adapt curriculums. However, grouping students by gender can also create a lack of co-learning environment. Now, you wouldn't say exactly what you said further down. I'm just referencing what you said. But you could mention those two things. And then if you wanted to, which would also be acceptable, you could say, this essay will dive into or will outline in more detail the advantages and disadvantages. Okay, so that is your introduction. So really, just stick to what they ask. Just stick to that as rigidly as you can, because you waste words. Not to say you're wasting words. What you wrote is really good, but you're wasting words in terms of time and what the examiner will look for.
Yep.
So give the main ideas, paraphrase what they say, give the main ideas about what you're going to write about, and then get into it. Okay?
Right.
Now, looking at your body paragraphs here, looks really good. Design and improve, guide film, and absolutely differences. Okay, nice. Separate schools. Okay. All right, nice. So your advantage here is jumping out at me is that it's easier for them to navigate the academic environment if they're separate, and it's easier for teachers to adapt the curriculum. Okay, good. In contrast, grouping students can also create a lack of co-learning environment. The opposite sex, for example, females might find it easier to connect with friends, whereas boys do not. Okay. After all, that's a good example there. After all, schools are not only for learning knowledge, but also to develop and grow as a whole. Okay, nice. So there you go. That's a clear advantage and a clear disadvantage. And then to sum up, it's great to say that, as discussed, this can have both positive and negative effects on the growth of students. All right, you got it. All right, your organization is clear for that essay. Just be aware about the introduction. Just keep it really, really simple. Now, if you could send this to me somehow, like that, or if you want to,
I would want to elaborate it. I would want to improve it more.
So if you get time, send it to me in the chat.
Definitely.
What I will do is then I will go through it and grab where you can improve. But it's looking really good. Your organization is really good.
Yes, one question I would like to ask is actually the ending of this type of essay. So, for example, right now I'm having one sum up sentence, and then I mentioned about so I have two sentences to sum up this essay, and I'm thinking of a third a third sentence to wrap the whole thing up, but I'm getting stuck there, and I was like, "Yep,
Yeah,
should I like
question.
say something like, for example, it's really important to see all the strengths and weaknesses to be able to carry out an effective curriculum for each gender, something like a recommendation on it like that? What should we go with?"
That's a great question. That's a really good question. So to your conclusion, really, you want it to be pretty short. All right, you want it to be pretty short. You want to end the essay and just tie it together. You want to neatly end the essay. So really, what you want to go for is you could mention something. You could mention an advantage that you've mentioned in a different way. So you could kind of sum up your second body paragraph in a sentence. You could try to sum up your third paragraph, your disadvantages in a sentence, and that's really what you're going for, and that just sums up your essay. Giving a recommendation, I think that would be fine. If you want to throw in a sentence as a recommendation, sure, because you've covered everything. And a nice way to conclude would be to give a recommendation, possibly for the disadvantage, right?
Right.
So that would be fine. Yeah, I think that would work really well. But do that and then send it to me, and then let's see how it looks. But remember, the conclusion is like, you just want to be really neat about it. Keep it short. Refer to the advantage. Refer to the disadvantage. And let's see what the recommendation looks like. Go for it. It certainly won't hurt. They didn't ask you for any recommendations, but let's see how it looks.
Okay.
Because you covered everything else really well.
All right.
Now, I'm sure you're really tired. Just want to say, super job overall. From my side, we have things we can look at in speaking, which I will put into plan, which would be working on taking out those small systematic errors in the grammar, and again, some small things with pronunciation. I'm going to look at that, and I'm going to plan that for you for our next lesson. In writing, send me what you have when you're finished, and I will give you the full feedback on your writing. And remember, you're always welcome to send me those letters and things.
Definitely.
Send them anytime, and I'll check them as soon as I can as well. But overall, super job there. If we've covered everything with education, I'll send you on the PowerPoint from today. If there's any feedback you'd like to give me, you're always welcome to give me that feedback. For example, I noticed that you get a little bit tired towards 10 o'clock, which is the writing time. You tell me if you want to do writing first and speak later. Maybe that makes more sense for you in terms of how you're feeling.
Yep.
Just let me know, no?
Yep. I think that actually makes a lot of sense. Because writing for me is more of a burden than the speaking part, because speaking is more fun. Great recommendation on that. Let's do the writing first and then the speaking. And beside that, great lesson so far. And I really like your recommendation on maybe in our next class we will focus on our reflex to eliminate all of those small errors. I think that is one of the I think that will help me a lot. So thank you so far.
It's a priority. It's a priority, and we're also going to bring in a little bit of recording as well.
Okay.
Very good. You're very aware of what you've said and any errors you've made. But we're going to focus on doing some recordings as well, and maybe even some transcripts.
Okay.
If I can figure out the technology, we're going to try and do some transcripts of what you're saying as well. Because the more aware you are of yourself and how you speak, easier it is for you to modify and change that. So top job today. It's great to see you again. Good luck with your week ahead and everything that happens. And I will see you next week or whenever you're back for lesson number 4. All right?
All right.
Okay.
Yes.
Have a great weekend too.
I will try to be on
Enjoy
track.
yourself.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye
Take
bye.
care.
Win. Bye.
See ya. Bye. Bye.
Thank you so much. Xong rồi.
Đi ăn thôi.
Đi ăn gì nữa? Đây là team tôi kiểu như là sau khi Ngọc học xong Ngọc đi ăn đi, và bây giờ là 10 giờ tối rồi, đi ăn là sẽ mà
Mặc thì thôi.
mặc thì khỏi những người đẹp biển thôi. Hay cả nhà. Cảm ơn cả nhà theo dõi nha. Trời, Bảo Ngọc lúc đầu Bảo Ngọc không nghĩ là mình livestream học IELTS mà nhiều người xem đến thế. Hồi nãy 4.000 mấy bạn xem, mà trong khi mình nghĩ giống như là trời ơi, sao mà sợ mọi người chán á. Thì chắc mọi người cũng chán thiệt, nhưng mà mọi người vẫn coi. Nhờ chị mà nãy giờ mọi người lấy sách vở ra học hả? Đó là một cái mà Bảo Ngọc rất là muốn nha, tạo động lực cho mọi người. Mặc dù bây giờ chắc mọi người cũng đã thi xong rồi, hoặc là học thì chắc học kỳ hè thôi, hay là ôn tập thôi đó. Nhưng mà đây là một trong những cái mà Bảo Ngọc đang cố gắng thực hiện, đó chính là học IELTS. Tại vì như mình chia sẻ, thứ nhất là mình cũng đã hết hạn bằng IELTS 8 chấm rồi, không thể nào đem cái 8 chấm nó ra khè hoài được. Rồi thứ hai nữa là tất nhiên là mình cũng có một cái số kế hoạch sắp tới mà sẽ cần dùng tiếng Anh rất là nhiều ấy, cho nên là mình cũng muốn là trong cái lời ăn tiếng nói của mình đó, nó sẽ chuẩn ở đây không phải là để mình kiểu không có lỗi hay là gì, nhưng mà không có lỗi mà giống như mình sẽ tự tin hơn á. Tại vì ngôn ngữ thật ra nó cũng là cái phương tiện không, phải không? Thì nếu mà mình nắm chắc được cái công cụ rồi thì mình sẽ có thể truyền tải được những gì mình nghĩ rất là tự tin. Thì Bảo Ngọc muốn là mình sẽ không bị những cái lỗi lặt vặt nó làm giảm chất lượng của phần mình nói hay cái phần mình giao tiếp với những người khác. Bảo Ngọc học ở đâu hả? Bảo Ngọc đang học ở Power English. Yeah. Nói chung là các thầy cô ở Power English thì rất là tận tâm á. Và tại vì do là coaching 1-1, mình thì học 1-1, cho nên là những cái yêu cầu đặc biệt của Bảo Ngọc hay là những cái điểm yếu của Bảo Ngọc á, cũng sẽ là một cái để giúp cho các thầy cô cân nhắc á, và thiết kế một cái lộ trình học dựa trên những cái đó. Và nhất là với cái quỹ thời gian hạn hẹp của mình nữa, thì mình thấy là cái điều này nó giúp cho mình rất là nhiều ấy. Thật ra là tuần rồi là Bảo Ngọc cũng đã skip học IELTS 1 tuần rồi đó. Mình cũng không làm bài tập gì luôn, cho nên là cũng hơi bị mất cái tiến độ á. Nhưng mà nói chung là thầy cô vẫn rất là nhiệt tình để hỗ trợ, và biết là mình bận vậy, cho nên là cũng cố gắng là sẽ thích ứng, cố gắng lên cùng Bảo Ngọc thích ứng coi là mình sẽ học như thế nào để hiệu quả. Thì hiện tại là cái chiến thuật của Bảo Ngọc á là đang làm, mình sẽ, do mình ít thời gian để có thể học với lại các thầy các cô, cho nên là trong các buổi học với thầy cô, giáo viên Việt Nam, giáo viên nước ngoài á, thì mình sẽ không học reading, không học listening, nghĩa là mình không học hết tất cả những kỹ năng. Bởi vì listening hay là reading á, thì Bảo Ngọc bản thân mình cũng có chia sẻ là mình tự thấy là mình có thể tự đọc rồi tự nghe, nói chung là mình tự rèn luyện được và nó sẽ có kết quả. Mình chỉ cần tự rèn luyện thì nó sẽ giỏi hơn. Nhưng mà với cả writing hay là speaking á, tại vì cái phần này nếu mà các bạn không có những cái người mà giám sát trong quá trình mình nói hay là giám sát trong quá trình mình viết á, thì sẽ rất là khó. Tại vì hai phần này là hai phần mà họ có một cái bảng điểm chấm tất cả các tiêu chí, nghĩa là bạn phải đáp ứng hết tất cả những cái tiêu chí này thì mới được cái ban điểm đó. Thành ra là phải có một người giáo viên họ kèm cặp cho mình để đảm bảo là mình đi đúng những cái tiêu chí đó và mình không có bị hụt, không bị sót, và mình biết là mình đang không làm tốt ở chỗ nào, ở cái tiêu chí nào, thì từ đó mình sẽ cố gắng có thể làm cải thiện đúng cái đó, nó sẽ tiết kiệm thời gian cho mình hơn đó. Thì cái chiến thuật của Bảo Ngọc là vậy. Nói chung là gắng giữ reading, listening ok. Rồi còn hai cái kỹ năng kia thì phải học rất nhiều. Tại vì nói thiệt luôn là Bảo Ngọc không giỏi viết. Bảo Ngọc có lẽ là Bảo Ngọc thấy là Bảo Ngọc cải thiện cái phần nói nhanh hơn á, nhưng mà còn cái phần viết á, Bảo Ngọc thấy Bảo Ngọc cải thiện hơi chậm. Mặc dù là mình cũng thường xuyên viết rất là nhiều bài, rồi viết hồ sơ, rồi viết essay, tiểu luận vân vân, may học viết thâm mắt luôn rồi cả khiếu tôi đó. Nhưng mà mình vẫn chưa có cái tốc độ phát triển kỹ năng viết của mình, nó vẫn chưa có nhanh á. Tips nhớ từ vựng lâu hả? Từ vựng không nên nhớ, tại vì nếu mà bạn cố gắng bạn thuộc cái từ vựng đó thì mình sẽ không có dùng được cái từ đó. Hoặc là nếu mà bạn cố gắng bạn chèn cái từ đó vô vào những cái chỗ mà nó không tự nhiên với mình á, thì nó cũng sẽ là một cái mà khiến cho cái người nghe, nhất là người bản xứ, họ cảm thấy là bạn không thật sự biết dùng cái từ đó á. Quan trọng là có thể bạn không dùng nhiều cái từ nó cao siêu, nhưng mà nó lại đúng lúc đúng thời điểm, thì nó sẽ có hiệu quả hơn là việc các bạn cố gắng chèn ép những cái từ nó nặng, hay là nó bị phức tạp quá so với cái khả năng dùng ngôn ngữ của mình. Còn cái tips mà học từ vựng đó chính là phải dùng từ vựng, nghĩa là phải đặt câu với từ vựng đó. Hồi xưa Bảo Ngọc có một cái bài tập mà rất là giúp Bảo Ngọc, đó chính là với một cái từ vựng mới á, mình muốn dùng nó thì không phải là ngay lập tức vào học thuộc nó, mà sẽ ngay lập tức là cố gắng hiểu và đặt một cái câu với cái từ đó, thì mình sẽ hiểu được cái cách dùng của từ đó như thế nào. Rồi có được cái đó xong á, thì mình sẽ tiếp tục tới bước thứ hai, chính là nói cái từ đó và nói cái câu trước cái từ đó. Lần đầu tiên khi mà mình dùng một cái từ mới trong cái câu của mình á, mình có thể cảm thấy nó hơi sượng. Nhưng mà bạn cố gắng bạn nói, bạn hiểu cái câu nói đó một vài lần á, bạn sẽ thấy là bắt đầu dần dần nó sẽ trở nên tự nhiên hơn với bạn. Và đó là cách mà để Bảo Ngọc học được những cái từ mà nó phức tạp hơn và nó mới hơn so với những cái gì mà mình biết. Rồi mình sẽ giải đáp một vài câu hỏi nữa nha. Where are you from? I'm from Vietnam, from Cần Thơ City, Vietnam. Khi nào tặng vé xem chung kết? Hình như là chị Dung mở mini game chứ tao còn không rõ, nhưng mà sắp mở mini game rồi, cho nên là cả nhà nhớ theo dõi nha. Và hãy đừng quên là phải đón chờ VBFF, đó chính là Người Đẹp Thời Trang Show Việt Nam Beauty Fashion Fest của đạo diễn Hoàng Nhật Nam, để có thể là xem Bảo Ngọc cũng như là những người chị em ở nhà mình cùng diễn trên một cái sân khấu rất là đặc biệt nha. Đó, ngoài ra nữa là để mình xem coi ai sẽ trở thành người kế nhiệm của tôi với danh hiệu Người Đẹp Thời Trang nữa chứ. Các bạn nói ai sẽ trở thành Người Đẹp Thời Trang, comment cho Bảo Ngọc xem nha. Có web nào học IELTS với test ok không? Bảo Ngọc biết một web của Cambridge nhưng mà mình không nhớ tên của nó. Target IELTS của mình là mấy? Target trước mắt của mình là 8.5 và target sau cùng của mình là 9 chấm. Và với cái target như vậy thì phần reading và listening của mình sẽ ok, sẽ đáp ứng được. Thứ nhất là reading thì Bảo Ngọc chọn 9 chấm, rồi còn listening thì Bảo Ngọc cũng hòm 8 chấm hay 8.5 gì đó. Nói chung, nhưng mà listening thì Bảo Ngọc biết là Bảo Ngọc có thể làm tốt hơn. Tại vì mình nói chung là cái khả năng nghe nó cải thiện cũng nhanh đó. Và chủ yếu là mình không bị về cái phần khả năng là mình không nghe được, mà mình bị một cái là chưa quen làm cái đề á. Tại vì làm đề đôi khi các bạn chỉ cần mất tập trung một xíu thôi thì phần listening của bạn nó sẽ bị hỏng cái chỗ đó. Tại vì bạn chỉ được nghe một lần thôi. Đó. Rồi để đáp ứng được tiêu chí mà lên cái ban như vậy thì cái phần speaking của Bảo Ngọc và listen và writing sẽ phải cải thiện rất là nhiều, phải lên ít nhất là một ban. Listen và writing sẽ phải cải thiện rất là nhiều, phải lên ít nhất là một ban. Và giao lưu nhiều lắm, biết tiếng Anh nhiều cho nó để mình nói chuyện được với người khác, nó chứ không chỉ là để flex đâu. Và nó còn là một cái mình thật sự là mình học được nhiều thứ luôn á. Đó, chẳng hạn như bây giờ các bạn lên những cái website nước ngoài á, thì các bạn sẽ thấy nó có rất là nhiều cái kiến thức mới, nhiều kiến thức cập nhật mà có thể ở Việt Nam mình chưa có. Đó, nhưng mà nó sẽ bằng tiếng Anh hay là một cái ngôn ngữ phổ thông nào khác ở trên thế giới hơn. Thì mình phải biết được cái ngôn ngữ đó thì mình mới có thể là tiếp thu kiến thức đó một cách nhanh chóng, mà không phải đợi cái kiến thức đó được dịch về Việt Nam, phải không? Hồi nãy chị làm bể đâu em rồi, chị xin lỗi, em chỉ làm rớt em. Ngọc là stop hay boss? À, stop hay boss hả? No, I'm flexible. Hay boss? À, stop hay boss hả? No, I'm flexible. No, I'm nhiều về hai việc. Thứ nhất là việc học tiếng Anh, thứ hai là việc học ở trường. Tại vì đằng nào nếu mà mình học như vậy thì mình cũng sẽ phải đánh đổi một số cái thời gian để dành cho cái việc đó, chứ không thôi mình không có cái gì nó ra cơm ra cháo thì lại là vô nghĩa, phải không? Đó, nhưng mà thật ra là Bảo Ngọc nhận thấy là trong cái thời gian của mình á, và Bảo Ngọc nghĩ tới sau này mình có làm việc gì đi chăng nữa thì mình cũng phải ráng trau dồi cái phần chuyên môn với lại tiếng Anh của mình. Tại vì mình chỉ cần mình chỉ cần hoãn lại một thời gian không học rồi không nói tiếng Anh thôi á, là Bảo Ngọc thấy là Bảo Ngọc bị mai một đi rất là nhiều rồi. Nhất là với kỹ năng writing của Bảo Ngọc, là Bảo Ngọc thấy cái điều đó rất rõ. Cho nên là dù có một cái thời điểm nó bận cái nào thì vẫn phải cố gắng duy trì, chứ không thôi là một ngày nào đó mà trong tương lai mà các bạn xong hết tất cả những cái việc của mình rồi, các bạn mới trở lại với cái việc học á, thì các bạn sẽ cảm giác giống như là các bạn trở lại vị trí ban đầu á, và sẽ tốn rất là nhiều công sức để mình có thể là đạt được gọi là đạt được cái mức mà hồi trước mình có đó. Tại vì cái việc học nó là một cái việc mà tích lũy theo thời gian, cho nên là nếu mà mình không tích lũy thì nó sẽ, hay là mình bỏ lỡ thì nó sẽ không có hiệu quả. Thành ra là phải gán thôi mọi người ơi.
Hết bụng vô.
Tiếp xây dựng idea cho speaking part 2. Lúc nãy Bảo Ngọc học với lại thầy của Bảo Ngọc tên là Owen. Đó chính là mình nên giữ mọi thứ đơn giản nhất có thể. Bảo Ngọc là kiểu như là gọi là suy nghĩ phức tạp luôn á. Kiểu giống như khi mà mình có một cái ý tưởng nào đó để mình nói, mình cũng muốn là cái ý đó nó phải phức tạp hơn, nó phải nhiều thứ hơn á. Nhưng mà thật ra là nếu mà trong IELTS thì bạn làm cái đó nó sẽ mất thời gian của bạn á. Cho nên là cứ keep it simple, mình focus vào những cái về cái phần phát triển ý của mình, về phát âm vân vân đó. Và tốt nhất là bạn, nếu mà được thì bạn nên nói những cái gì. Cái này là tips để có thể nói speaking chung luôn. Và nếu mà bạn có những cái trải nghiệm gì với cái chủ đề thì nên nói từ cái trải nghiệm của bạn thì nó sẽ mượt hơn nha. Nói những cái gì nó dễ hơn với mình nha. Ok, hy vọng là đã giải đáp được một số thắc mắc của mọi người. Và bây giờ thì cũng gần 10 giờ rưỡi rồi. Mình đã học 8 giờ cho đến 10 giờ rưỡi rồi đó mọi người ơi. Cho nên là rất là cảm ơn mọi người đã theo dõi nha. Và nếu mà các bạn có những cái idea, những cái ý tưởng, những câu hỏi gì về cái việc học tiếng Anh hay là về việc học chung của mình, hay về những cái việc khác, thì hãy có thể đặt câu hỏi cho Bảo Ngọc nhé. Và Bảo Ngọc sẽ cố gắng giải đáp hoặc là làm những cái video để đáp ứng yêu cầu của các bạn nha. Love mọi người rất nhiều và hy vọng mọi người có một buổi tối tuyệt vời. Đừng quên follow kênh của Bảo Ngọc mới được 600k. Yay, love.
Bye.
Và nhớ follow Miss World Việt Nam năm nay, bởi vì chỉ còn 9 ngày nữa thôi là tụi tôi sẽ final world rồi. Bye bye cả nhà nha. Bye bye cả nhà nha. Bye. Này tôi bị sưng mắt xíu vậy. Good night everyone. Follow Miss World Vietnam. We only have 9 days left until the final walk.
Nói gì không nghe gì hết trơn.
And you will be seeing me and Mai Phương and Phương Nhi in beautiful dresses walking down the stage the final time before we officially trước khi chúng tôi thật sự không còn là top 3 đương nhiệm nữa. Good night. Mắt thâm quá rồi, phải đi ngủ thôi cả nhà. Nói giỡn thôi nhưng mà tôi còn việc để làm. Nhưng mà bye.